If you have ever felt like you should be doing something bigger or grander, or perhaps living closer to the potential of your capabilities, well, you should be delighted to know there is endless content out there about being more productive, making more money, being healthier. These sources may help us get more done and squeeze more value out of ourselves, but it is often easy to overlook the fact that all we are trying to do when we want to meet our potential is actually provide more value to others. I'm a raving fan of the inversion principle, and when we come to the case of our individual obsession with being the best version of ourselves, we could look at what we could focus on to help make others their best and what moves humanity forward, rather than thinking about what moves us forward. Because when we zoom out, they are actually the same thing. As we find with the nature of ego, we can often sabotage our long-term goals for short-term interests. So today we're digging into the number one skill that makes a truly great human that is all too easy to overlook. So hello and welcome to the Growth Mindset Psychology podcast with me, Sam Webster, where we dig into the science of self-improvement and build a philosophy of a life well lived. A concept that I can't get out of my head is how we can zoom in and out of different processes in nature and physics and find repetitions of the same systems at completely different scales. The blood vessels of a human mapped to the root network of a tree or the stream network of a river. And if we use this methodology of zooming in and out, we can use our imagination to realize how similar human beings are to their own individual cells that make them. Each human being has an array of processes and things that they do, and we can even become highly adept and specialized in a multitude of our operations. Yet, if we are abandoned and completely alone, we are a little vulnerable and useless. Now, following this zooming in investigation, we're going to learn a lot about what it means to be a human being that actually works and operates well. So let's start at looking at individual cells in more depth. A cone cell in the eye has the most incredible ability to detect specific wavelengths of light. It manages this wondrous feat whilst it also converts chemical energy into getting different processes done within it, and it can even build some of its own tools internally and get rid of its waste. Yet, without the rest of the engineering of an eyeball to focus light, the individual cone cell itself is not an especially illuminating individual. In fact, it would be lost without a transport system for energy and waste. It might not last very long without the healthcare system coming for free from the body that fights pathogens, and it certainly wouldn't last very long if it wasn't for the sea of other cells around it that keep it warm and safe. And you'll find this example rings true just the same for a liver cell or a brain cell, or even a heart cell. Each individual cell takes on meaning and function once we put it in the context of a whole organ and the entire human being that it exists within. These cells and organs are completely dependent on teamwork. Now, when we look at a human being, an individual human can't build a computer or a spaceship. In fact, left alone in the jungle without any assistance, a human being would struggle to even bake a cookie. Yet, here we are in the modern day with organizations that operate in harmony with other organizations to enhance the capacity of human society with these incredible emergent capabilities that we have. We can go to the moon, we can map the genome, and we can collectively lol at cat videos in our billions. Just like the individual organs in the body that have their own main functions to the rest of the body, and within those organs there are individual cells that have their own functions within the organ. In human society, we have organizations, which even has the same word organ within it. And these organizations provide useful services to other organizations and humans around the planet and contribute to human society. And within those organizations, you have individual humans doing their own individual jobs and working in teams. Over history, this first started at a very local level with trade within and between tribes. And this grew to trade within countries, ferrying goods up and down roads, and this even led to continent-spanning routes like the Silk Road. These arteries of society have only grown over time with the advent of technology connecting us all globally, firstly with things like the wheel, boats, cars, airplanes, and now the internet and satellites. Because of this progress, we've been able to build and invent all sorts of wizard-like technology that we simply didn't have when we just evolved from apes and lived in the wild. We now have these big, solid, blocky things where we can store all our worldly belongings and sleep safely on. These highly engineered, soft, foamy things developed perfectly for our sleep problems that we never used to have. We've now turned our daily foraging requirement into a radically convenient pick and choose system where we turn up at an especially large blocky thing somewhere probably close by to you that will hold everything you might need. And within it, there is literally everything you might really need to consume, and you just simply grab whatever you feel like eating. The only difficult part of this process is finding the time to go to it and then working out what you actually want. And that is the magical power of teamwork and the organizations within society providing all these different services to us, the human. In fact, we transcended some of our problems. Now, in the modern day, an individual doesn't need to be a part of an organization with other human beings for them to be able to run their own functioning organization all by themselves. Creators and solopreneurs can operate very adeptly as part of the human entity. Sitting here right now in Portugal, I can open an online store with a few clicks and utilize servers across the globe. This isn't an advert for Shopify, but it would be a good one if I was doing one. Because literally within minutes, I could be selling services to a dentist in Slough, UK, or a farmer in Saratau on the islands of Vanuatu on the opposite end of the globe. And quite mind-bendingly, even an astronaut in the International Space Station has an internet connection and could buy a service directly from me if they so wanted. Without me having to do anything difficult or trying to work with other people, all they have to do is click a few buttons. That is mad. In fact, the size of human teams needed to make a billion-dollar organization has shrunk at a rapid level. WhatsApp is infamous for only having had 50 employees at the time when they sold to Facebook for $20 billion. Today, with the dawn of all our AI magic going on, we might well see someone make a billion-dollar business all by themselves. And we could call these people wizards, breaking out of the normal human biological need of working with others to create massive value alone by wielding magic. And that sounds cool, hey? But let's not get ahead of ourselves in our quest to provide value. Before all these amazingly weird emergent properties started happening due to teamwork, humans still needed each other simply to stay alive and safe. Hence, connection is hardwired into us, much like many of our fears that are now irrational. But connection, however, is still essential. A rather brilliant emergent property at a local level that happens when you spend lots of time with one individual who you're rather into is that you can form a family. If you are lucky enough to create your own little humans, they grow up from defenseless little baby things into competent, caring adult things. The close connection that you have with your now adult children can give you the added benefit of having someone to look after you as you get old and maybe bake you cookies. And this might give us a hint that there is something in teamwork. We can also find some lessons in what our biggest innate priorities are by looking at toddlers, because toddlers are very busy learning the most fundamentally important skills for life they can as quickly as possible. A small developing human will apply vast amounts of energy into learning how basic physics works so that it can move and walk. In fact, the human brain rapidly learns how to process massively complicated calculations of how to operate very finely controlled movements whilst the toddler is walking, and even allowing it to self-correct potential trip. And you can compare the few months it takes a toddler to learn to walk to how long it took humanity to teach a robot to walk and not fall over, which has taken decades upon decades. Another thing these tiny humans is doing is learning a language. They are sponges. As adults now, the idea of trying to learn Finnish or Mandarin is an overwhelmingly scary task to take on, especially trying to do this without the help of a teacher or an app or a textbook. Yet a 3-year-old could learn any human language if you immerse it in that language, and it will learn it completely fine. And that's because it's such an important skill for a human. And now we come to what else it is that these little humans are learning at the same time. We find that just as they are hungry to communicate and move about, they are ravenous to connect. whilst they're learning these incredibly complex tasks like walking and talking at a core internal level, they're picking up on the slightest nuances of connection with other humans, because connections are an essential skill it will need to stay alive and safe when it's older. Being able to operate as a functioning member of a family or organization, or keep a human safe from external threats that it has no ability to overcome on its own. Being able to connect is in fact as important as being able to walk and talk, which is why it is learned at such a rapid rate in our very early years. So I'd advise you to put a pin in the fact that beyond the essential skills of moving and communicating, the biggest priority for little humans is definitely learning about human connection. So hold that thought whilst we have a quick advert break before putting this all together in the second half of the episode. So now let's go back to organizations and how they really work. An interesting phenomenon that you'll realize as you age a little is that when you look at any human organization or work in one, you'll find they are unorganized at best. And generally speaking, all of their processes will be messy. If you consider that Apple this year released an iPad advert where they squished everything and they had a giant backfire, or Google shipped an AI that would draw black men as Nazis, well, these most valuable companies in the world still mess up on the regular. And these are the things they put out publicly. So internally, it's clearly going to be a ton messier than you'll realize, and those are meant to be the best organizations on the planet. So considering how dysfunctional all our teams and organizations really are, what keeps them together? Well, it's these basic connecting abilities between humans that act like gravity, and they keep us all together despite our very gross dysfunctionality at a larger level. In the same way that a single human or animal body doesn't really know what is going on when or where inside it, the individual cells simply depend on each other through internal signaling molecules to their neighbors, keeping everybody friendly and just doing stuff. They bustle through their daily individual cell lives, quite oblivious to the magical emergent property of the whole human life that they are a part of. They're just a little cell doing its own little thing, being nice to its neighbors. Likewise, organs send different stuff to each other around the body without too much awareness of what they're doing or why. Even the brain itself has no idea what is going on inside most of the body, and in fact, it has so many cognitive biases that it blinds itself to half of the reality going on outside of it as well. But despite this completely dysfunctional fashion of operation, the body still operates, stuff happens, and you can get through your life doing stuff just fine. And when we look at human societies in general, there isn't a government on the planet that is fully aware of everything going on inside their own government, let alone what's going on inside their country or the planet. It's the same for any organization that contributes to the machine of society moving humanity forward. Organizations simply just make stuff that fulfills a function whilst relying on a much bigger multitude of services from the endless other organizations, and there are so many of them. If you were to follow the amount of companies involved simply to make your coffee exist and get it to you, it can become pretty mind-blowing. And considering how dysfunctional all these organizations are, it really doesn't seem like anything should work. But humanity in our organizations is remarkably like a human and its organs. The body gets through its days and years due to each individual cell's ability to get on with its neighbors. And likewise, humanity itself bumbles through the years, making very real progress through our sheer individual ability to be nice to the few people around us. There is no individual master planner magically making things happen on the earth and for human society. We're just collectively tinkering away at our own little things with the people around us and being nice to each other. Organizations stay semi-coherent simply because people like each other and carry on working together. One of the biases that we have as a human is to try and lump things into boxes, and often when we look at things like governments or companies, we often think of them as their own entity that makes their own plans, without thinking of the fact that actually it's a bunch of individuals doing their own thing. People often think of their government as completely useless on the most part, and yet somehow they have this genius ability to ruin lots of things for us, or come up with these elaborate plans to execute on some crazy conspiracy theory, like fooling us all into believing that climate change is real when And it all comes from this mysterious controlling entity, because we forget that everything that happens is due to a series of individual humans that are mostly not very coherent at what they're doing. And that makes it very hard to unpack why anything happens and to be able to come up with an explanation. And we like having explanations. The good thing here is that we grow up with these ideas that there are these mysterious entities that somehow make the world go round and push the world in different directions. And part of our desire to do something much bigger in the world is to become one of these mysterious entities that then steers the world in the direction. But what we don't realize is that those things don't exist. As I said earlier when I was speaking about wizards that could build $1 billion company all by themselves, that sounds like a fun idea, but it actually doesn't hold the secret to making magic. It's worth noting that there is a much simpler strategy to get along in society and contribute in your own small individual way to the unstoppable progress of human magic. That is quite simple. You just need to be nice to those around you. Just like the individual cells that get on within the body by staying operational with their neighbors, as a human, basically all you need to do is stay operational with those around you. And you are genuinely contributing to what is going on within humanity. We can relieve ourselves of the giant pressure to change humanity as a whole and put a dent in the universe when we remember that we are built to operate effectively by simply getting along in our own little world. The curious thing is that when you unburden yourself from pressure and expectations, when you don't feel like you have to do something, you can free yourself to do anything. So many of us have this internal monologue of, I should do this, I should do that, I should be achieving this level of success by now, and so on and so forth. And that is a great way to live a life that you don't enjoy, and you will always feel behind, and you will always feel fundamentally bad about yourself. So stop shoulding on yourself all the time. And remember, you are a piece of magic as you are, and you can contribute to humanity by being yourself and by just being kind to those around you. That is the biggest and best way to build connection and move yourself and humanity forward. It might sound like a mega lame conclusion that isn't any sort of practical take home, depending on how you feel about it. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry for you. But honestly, if you want to be good at sales, you need to learn how to make someone's day by understanding what they want and ensuring that they get an epic outcome. Sales done right is all about kindness. It's not about snake oil and scamming people. It's giving someone so much value when they buy stuff off you that they want to come back and buy more stuff off you, and they want to tell all their friends to buy that stuff off you. Making money in a scalable way is about kindness and helping others. Full stop. When you can fundamentally wire this into your brain and have the mindset that success is about connecting and pleasing others, you will do so much better in life. And that is the number one skill you actually need to build in life. All right. That was a short, sharp episode today, so I hope you learned something, and perhaps you could also enjoy trying some zooming in and zooming out of things around, because it's a great way to dissect the world, and I'm sure you'll have some ideas from it. If you know anybody who you respect for just what a great human being they are due to being helpful to others, please send them this episode to tell them how magic they are. And if you're interested in chatting about writing or psychology, then you can join the Growth Mindset Premium Discord channel, and also access the Ask Me Anything dashboard and exclusive content from the show. Remember to stay awesome and don't forget to smile at strangers. Thank you so much for listening.
Go you!
Your consistency to reach the end of an episode is legendary.
My hero!
If you have any ideas or feedback for the show, I'm always interested to hear from you.
You're the best!
Studies show we need time for information to sink in, so I'm going to give you a 5-second pause. Silence. To reflect on one idea from the show before you jump back into your busy life. Ready and go.